All right, so I'm assuming that everybody who attended today also got a copy of my script that I used with Lincoln Heritage. That is the script we're going to be covering today. I am going to be creating a new script for Lasting Mark and the new venture that I'm on. And before we get into covering the script, objections in the first 30 seconds, all of that, I did send out a big email today for everyone to attend the Meet the Partners on Thursday. So I'm so sorry. I am booked like 4 weeks out for interviews. If you want to get to know the Lasting Mark community and culture, if you speak with me sooner than whatever your interview time is, I've invited everybody to register and attend the Meet the Partners. And if you did not get that, please put it in the chat if you did not get it, and I will put the link in there so that you guys can register and attend for that if you want to know more information about the company. So I'll just wait to see if anybody is going to put that in there. Okay. And that's going to be at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. There we go. The link is there. Make sure that you put my name as who referred you in so they don't connect you with somebody else. Okay, so in the chat, who struggles with keeping somebody on the phone when you get someone on the phone? How many people get, I'm busy right now, call me back later, I already took care of it, I don't want the quote anymore, or I'm not interested? How many people struggle with getting people to answer the phone and then giving in to whatever smoke screen is being delivered to you? And because this is a collaborative group training today, we want the training to provide value to those that struggle with this area. So again, the question was, who struggles with keeping people on the phone in the first 30 seconds? And in a minute, I will be asking a brave soul to role play with me. I'll spotlight you. We'll role play together, and we'll kind of give you an idea in real time what this feels like and what it should sound like, not just me just talking to all of you. So new leads easier, old leads is a struggle. How many people call aged leads versus new leads? Because even with new leads, you're still going to get people that say you called them at a bad time and you're just going to be living in the world of scheduling appointments. And when you call those appointments back, they don't answer, they disappear, they ghost you. So whether you're calling new leads or old leads, there is sales resistance in all leads. And so I'm assuming that you're on this call right now because you're not closing as many as you should. And you probably aren't closing as many as you should because you aren't having as many conversations as you need to have. And the reason you aren't having as many conversations as you need to have is because you're doing this. Oh, sure, I can call you back at 3 o'clock. No problem at all. Oh, but you are really interested in that, right? I just want to make sure. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to call you at 3. 3 o'clock rolls around. Hi, Bob, it's Dana. I was calling you back for that 3 o'clock appointment, and they don't answer, right? So we have to be able to keep them on the phone, whether it's a new lead or an aged lead. You got to. So the number one thing that I always did when I called leads was just ask for a little bit more time. And I want you to put yourself in the position of when a telemarketer calls you. Even when I fill something out online and I was interested in it, Do I really want to have that conversation right now? Can't you just send me something in the email? Do I want to talk to a salesperson? Just like think about what you go through when someone calls you. If someone actually tried to keep me on the phone, I would probably say, okay, but most people don't even try. So don't be the person that doesn't even try. Okay, rule number 1, don't be the person that doesn't even try to keep someone on the phone. Because if you don't try, you're going to be in playing the numbers game. So now's not a good time. I'm walking into a doctor's office. Now's not a good time. I'm in a meeting. All 70-year-olds are in meetings. Okay. They're all in meetings at the same time.
Oh yeah.
He's like, I'm about 15 minutes away. I'm like,
Background noise. Okay, so because of that, I've even told my team before in the past, I don't care if they say it's not a good time. I just had an alien rocket ship land on my front door with $1 million of cash. Can you call me back at 3? No, you're not going to call them back. It is the same rinse and repeat process every single time, because the minute you give in and you believe them, what else is that doing? That means that you're practicing bad habits. And when you practice bad habits, you're more likely to take that into your next call. So whether it's a real excuse or not a real excuse, what you're doing is you're sharpening your sword so that it just becomes autopilot. Every single time someone gives you an objection, whether it's real or false, if you aren't conditioned to just say it, then you're just going to be in your head about, should I believe that excuse or not believe that excuse? Well, it sounded real, so I said, okay. Like, that's what we can't do. Okay, so the number one thing you just got to say is, hey, that's not a problem. I know you weren't expecting my call right now. I guess you just have a minute or two to see if it even makes sense for me to call you back later. Okay, so someone tell me in the chat, what type of tone was I using? What type of tone did you hear when I provided you that response? Because I could have just said, oh, that's not a problem. I know you weren't expecting my call. Do you just have a minute right now to see if I can call you back, if it makes sense? Right? Does that sound the same as, oh, that's not a problem at all. Hey, I know you weren't expecting my call. I guess you just have a minute or two right now just to see if it even makes sense for me to call you back later. Right? We just ask, but we ask, the words is 50% of it, but how you ask is the other 50%. Okay, those two have to mesh. We could all be reading the same script and we could all be saying the same things, but if we say it however we want to say it, it's all going to be received different. Okay, so volunteer, who wants to be spotlighted up here and role play?
I do.
dibs.
Put it
I
in
got
the
it. Oh, sorry.
Put it in the chat, please. And then I will search for you. Okay, so I see R-E-U. All right. All right, who do we got here?
Hello, Dana.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Sai.
Sai?
Yes.
All right, Sai. So we're going to role play the I don't have time right now. And did you want me to say it one more time? Oops. Okay, there we go. Did you want me to say it one more time or you got it?
So I don't have time right now, right?
Yep.
Let me. Okay. Okay, right there.
All right. And I want you to try to do it, even if you do it slow. I want you to just really focus on the tone. Sorry, I keep muting you because I see people coming in and I'm trying to mute them at the same time. Unmute yourself. Okay, so call me. Just start with hi, Dana, and you can do the introduction. We're not focused on the introduction right now. We're just focused on the objection. So go ahead with your intro, whatever you use.
Okay. Hello, Dana. I'm Sai. I'm getting back to you regarding your request for final expense, getting some protections for your family. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, you know, it does, but I really don't have time right now. Can you maybe call me back this afternoon?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I guess, do you have like a few minutes right now just to see if like we could do, what we do can even help? And if it even makes sense to call you back later.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to give you some feedback and then I'm
Mhm.
going to get another volunteer to try. One of the things that most people have to work on is having the words memorized so you can just focus on the tone,
Okay.
right? If you're still trying to get the words out, then it's going to be impossible to have a good tone matched with.
Okay.
I would also recommend shortening that one for you because of your accent. Not that it's a bad thing, but I don't want it to be too wordy for you. So I would take out that middle part. Just say, that's not a problem. You know, do you just have a minute or two right now to see if it even makes sense for me to call you back later and take out that middle part so it's not as wordy for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's take one. Oh, I see a hand right there. All right. We're going to do KP.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Hold on one sec. Well, you got to have your camera on though to be a volunteer.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, one sec. I got to spotlight. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
Hey, I
Yeah.
recognize you,
Yeah, I'm still battling the flu.
Kevin.
Just full disclosure. So but I said what the heck, just do it anyway.
All right. Well, I didn't know that was you. What a fun surprise. All right. So go ahead and give me a call.
Ring ring.
Hello.
Hey Dana, this is Kyle. I just had a moment here to get back to you with the request you made on Facebook. It looks like you're looking at options for final expense. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's really not a good time right now. Can you call me back maybe tomorrow?
Yeah, it's not a problem, right? You weren't expecting a call out of the blue. I guess, did you maybe just have a second to see if it even makes sense to call you back? Because I don't have to call you back, but
Okay. Okay. So for you, and I know you're battling the flu, so we have to give Kevin some credit here. Couple of pieces that I'm going to point out to you. Number one, I think you need to slow down a little bit. I think a lot of people tend to speed up a little fast, but you have to remember that all we have is our voice. This is the first time someone is hearing you, and they're not tracking what you're saying as fast as you're saying it. So I would recommend to slow down, and then when you feel better, we'll definitely role play that more. So what's interesting is both people that volunteered, and we're going to move on here in a moment, both people that volunteered made not a mistake, because it's not everybody agrees with me, but who can tell me in the introduction what both people did that I personally consider a huge nails on the chalkboard move? What did they do in their introduction to calling me? Someone put it in the chat. Put it in the chat. They said final expense. No. Rich, what do you mean by no pause? No, you never want to ask, how are you, Brandon? Rushing through the script. Nope, not how are you. Wait for the person to answer their name. Oh, someone's been watching my videos. Now, why is it important to me? I know that some people disagree with this. You're correct. No pause after the name. Why do you think it's important to let somebody acknowledge themselves? To engage in a conversation, put it in the chat, your answers. Everyone loves to hear their name.
I think you're making fun of me. I'm like,
Hello. Next time, mute upon entry. Permission to engage so they can be engaged. Respect. Correct. For me, I think the person that hit the nail on the head, whoever wrote respect, I think that's the real thing. When someone calls you and they just start bulldozing themselves into trying to having a conversation with you before you're even ready to have it, it is a false sense of security that you're getting further along in the script just because you decided to continue and then the person wasn't ready. So it is always going to be better to let somebody acknowledge themselves. And I mean, what if it was like a son that inquired for his dad, right? Or what if it was somebody else inquiring for someone else, and now you're just like, you go through the whole thing and they're like, I'm not Nancy, right? So I'm a huge proponent of letting someone acknowledge themselves before we just start talking with our intro. So the intro would sound more something like, hi, Dana, right? So let them, and I wouldn't say, is this Dana? So that I could say no, just hi, Dana. And then, hey, Dana, you know, this is just Jackie calling and blah, blah, blah. We have our intro. And at the end of your intro, you should be expecting an objection. And that's a mindset thing, right? I expect to have an objection. You should be caught off guard if they're like, okay. You're like, oh, okay, I can keep going. That's when you should be caught off guard, not when you get an objection. So number one, say their name, let them respond to you, and then continue your intro and be ready for an objection. So I don't have time right now. The second one that we're going to cover is, well, let's do a vote in the chat. I don't have time. No, I don't have time is what we already did. So I'm not interested, or I already took care of it. Let's see what lights up. I'm not interested, or I already took care of it. Kind of like 50-50. Not interested is the one I hear the most. Already took care of it is definitely winning. Not interested. It's like, it really is 50-50. All right, so we'll do both quickly, and then we'll transition into the psychology of the sales process. Okay, so I already took care of it. How many times, for people who have sold final expense insurance before, have overcome the I already took care of it objection and then come to find out they actually didn't take care of it? It should be a lot, right? Because I already took care of it is an easy way to just get you off of the phone. So here are some no questions that I do not ask to overcome this objection. I don't ask, who did you take care of it with, right out of the gate? Most of them don't even know.
Fine, but I got them on mute while I sign.
Goodness. All right. And I don't ask them, what type of policy did they get? Now, why would I not ask right out of the gate, before I'm even in discovery, what did they get and who did they get it with? Correct. They don't know you. They don't trust stalker vibes. But you guys, you'd be surprised how many people ask those questions as their very first questions. It's just, well, who did you go through? Well, what did you get? You do not have permission to ask these kinds of questions in the first 30 seconds of your conversation. They're not like, they have no reason to answer it for you. It is literally none of your business at this point. So one of the first questions that I say right out of the gate, because it's a really easy one to answer, is always start with, oh, that's not a problem. How long ago did you get it? Okay, that's a really easy one to ask. Whether they got it or not, I'm always going to say, oh, that's not a problem. How long ago did you get it? I would say almost 100% of the people that I've asked that question to have answered me. Oh, I just got it yesterday. Oh, I just got it 2 weeks ago. Oh, I've had it for 6 months. Whatever the reason is, I really don't care. I am trying to game plan in the back of my mind if they tell me they've had something for 5 years. Are we going to replace policies, guys, for someone that's had a policy for 5 years if they have a true whole life final expense? We're not, right? They've passed the 2-year contestability period. It is just unethical to try to replace policies as long as they're the type of policy that they should be in. So Well, while I have you on the phone, right? Hey, while I have you on the phone, do you think it would be reasonable? Someone write down the word reasonable in the chat. That word should always be used in your vocabulary when you're selling. Sure, it's reasonable, right? Can I do this is a very easy thing to say no to, right? Hey, while I have you on the phone, do you think it would be reasonable to offer you one more quote just to be sure you have the best policy available? Now, why am I saying best policy available and not best price? Even as a broker having multiple carriers, I'm not going to change that, right? Because what if what they got doesn't suit all of their needs, right? So, and I also don't want them thinking about price because I'm about to open them up and engage them in a discovery conversation. And if I get them focused on price, that's the direction I'm going to go, or they're going to force me to go. Okay. So, would it be reasonable to offer you just one more quote just to be sure you have the best policy available? Now, at this point, you are going to get a no, I'm good, or okay, go ahead. So, but the point is, how many people right now, those that were not on my team before at Tailored Legacy, if you're on here, how many people right now are asking to give somebody one more quote? Would it be reasonable to give you one more quote to see if you got the best policy available? Or when someone says, I already took care of it, do you just say, okay, bye? Sorry to bother you. Are we asking, be honest with yourself, are you asking for one more quote? Because I already took care of it is a buyer, right? As long as they actually bought. And so the people that are writing not asking, I'm proud of you for saying that, because every time you don't ask, same for the first 30-second objections, every time you don't ask for a few minutes and you just schedule the call back, you are conditioning yourself to do it again. So by not and the reason you're not asking is because you have fear. You have fear of rejection, right? We don't do something because we're afraid of not getting the result that we want. So by just saying, okay, we don't get that and another rejection again. And that makes us feel good. It keeps us in our comfort zone. But we have to be okay with getting the rejection, because on the other side of rejection is somebody that will say, sure. And if you never ask, and if you don't practice asking, you're never going to get that person that says, sure. So many times we would listen to calls and the person was like, I already got it, man. I already got it, brother. Thanks for calling. And they said, well, hey, would it be reasonable to offer you one more quote, just to make sure? And they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Ends in a sale. Would have never thought from the first 30 seconds that that person would have said, okay. But if you don't ask, you will never have that opportunity to go in and do discovery and figure out if you can put somebody in a better position. So you always, always have to ask, right? Who are we here to be sales professionals, or are we here to be order takers? Or we want to be sales professionals or order takers, right? Order takers don't ask hard questions. Order takers wait for the low-hanging fruit and wait for the ones that say, oh, I'm so happy you called. I've been waiting by my phone all day, right? Sales professionals get uncomfortable and ask hard questions. So that is what you have to challenge yourself to do. Every single time you ask it and you get a no, you've sharpened that sword. Every time you ask it and get a no, you're sharpening that sword so that when you get that person that says yes, it's so sharp, you're right into your conversation now. Sure, I'll take one more quote. Why do people say yes for one more quote? Doubt, or they really don't have one. Right. Because how do most salespeople sell? Most salespeople sell. Yes, Kevin and Alyssa in there. let's just get you approved. You guys know that's like my biggest pet peeve. And so when that happens, when they've already taken care of it and they already left kind of like, and then you come in all sweet with one more quote, let's just make sure you have the best policy available. And they say, okay. That means they have doubt. Or they had all these conversations and they never made a decision. And so now you, like, that is the best person to get into a conversation with. Don't think that you're just doing this based on price, right? You're doing it because someone is insecure about the decision that they just made, or they're insecure about all the options that were presented to them, and they are stuck in the world of not being able to make a decision. Okay, so same thing with I'm not interested. I'm not interested a lot of times means what? I'm not interested is also a smokescreen for what? A lot of times. Fear, good. I don't know, good. What else? They're worried that they can't afford it or they'll get declined. That's correct, right? Or they talk to one person and Miss Betty called. She wants a quote for 20,000. She's 75. The salesperson says, sure, I'll give you a quote for 20,000. That's 200 and something a month. Now Miss Betty thinks I can't afford life insurance. So the next time you call her, she's like, no, I'm not interested because I can't afford what the person that quoted her right before you just gave her. That happens all the time. I'm so sorry to hear that, Miss Betty. Were you not interested because you maybe thought it was unaffordable, or that maybe you just couldn't qualify? Right? I'm so sorry to hear that. Were you not interested because it was maybe unaffordable, or that maybe you couldn't qualify? Now, what are they going to say 9 times out of 10 if they go along with you in this sequence? Are they going to say that they couldn't qualify, or are they probably going to say that it was too expensive? Nine times out of 10, I always got it was too expensive. Very, very few times I would get not qualify. And guess what? That's a clue. If they say they're worried they couldn't qualify, what type of insurance might they be trying to apply for? Exactly. Term. So that's a clue. If someone tells you that they couldn't qualify, well, now you have a person you get to educate. That's a huge clue. That obviously they weren't trying to get the type of insurance that a 75-year-old would be getting. If they say it's unaffordable, then you can probably assume they talked to an order taker who gave them a quote for coverage they couldn't afford. Both of those are a win. Has anybody ever written a script before? Has anyone tried from scratch without any help, tried to write their own script? So here's a clue on how you write a script from scratch. Anytime you ask a question, okay, and we're going to use this one as the question, as the not interested one. You have to write down every single possible answer that the customer could give you. And if there's like 20 possible answers, that is a bad question. You don't ask it. Because you have to be prepared to respond to every single possible answer. You probably didn't realize it, but you are also scripting your customer, because you already know and have planned what they're supposed to say based on the questions that you've asked them. So if I'm asking them this question, I already know that they're probably going to say as well, what if they don't say, it wasn't it wasn't the price, or it wasn't the coverage? What if they just say, no, I'm not interested? Because that's another option, right? No, I'm just not interested. So when you're writing a script, you have to think about, well, what could they possibly say to that question? And when they give me that response, what am I going to say back? Right? That's how you write a script. So that you have to be 10 steps ahead of the customer at all times. So when we go through these questions, it's not like, oh, let's just think of a good question to ask. No, we have to think 10 steps ahead so that we can control the entire flow and the direction of this call. That's right. Never ask a question you don't have a possible response to. Okay, so that's the not interested thing. Those are going to be your most common objections. I don't have time. I'm not interested, or I already took care of it, right? If they just hang up on you guys, just move on. You can't control everything. You can't control if someone hangs up on you. You could call them back and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I think we just got disconnected, right? You could just play dumb. You could just call them back. But really, you should be getting enough lead volume to be able to call through the ones that are going to hang up on you, because it'll happen. A lot of times people just want to quote online. They don't want to talk to someone. So the more empathetic you are, if you call them back and they do answer, you just apologize. You always apologize, even if they're in a bad mood, even if they're cussing you out, even if they're mad. I'm so, so sorry. I certainly don't want to be the one that ruined your day, right? You just apologize. What are people gonna get mad at you because you're apologizing? Okay, so any other questions in the chat on first 30-second objections? I think the biggest hurdle that you can overcome today is to make sure that you respond. Do not say okay. Someone says, I don't have time. You don't say okay. You ask for permission for a couple more minutes, and it's okay if they say no. It's because you asked, right? That's sharpening your sword. That's making you a better sales professional. I'm not interested. I'm so sorry. Are you not interested because of A or because of B? I already took care of it. That's not a problem. How long ago did you get it? Keep them on the phone, right? Get them to create that doubt. We get into discovery. Okay. Any other questions on first 30 seconds before we get into the body of the script? How many times would you rebuttal if they keep giving you smoke screens? Yeah, I mean, my personal goal is I never want to be the one that says bye. If they're still hanging on with you, why not just ask them a discovery question, right? If they're still there, so like what kind of caused you to get this in the first place then, right? Like just use it as an opportunity to practice. But if they haven't hung up on you, I'm going to still ask them questions and keep them on the phone. Is tone influenced by your personality, or keep it neutral, nice, professional? I think if we're just talking about the first 30 seconds, you really just want to try to focus on a nice, calm, slow, neutral, empathetic tone. If I were to bottle that up and sell it to you, I wish I could, but that's what I try to do. And I'm always apologizing in the first 30 seconds, no matter what. They're always mad. So I always apologize. Can you elevate on the I'm happy with what I have? So it would be the same thing. I would just say, that's great. I guess while I have you on the phone, do you think it would be reasonable? Do you think it would hurt to just give you one more quote just to make sure you have the best protection available for your family? Right? Just really trying to create that doubt no matter what. Okay, let's move on to discovery, right? Discovery. That is so important because we can't be transactional when we're selling a final expense policy. How much does it cost, right? Tell me how much I can qualify for. What can I get, right? And so how do we get them to slow down and get them to answer questions for us without sounding like a script robot or us being an interrogator? Because there is a fine line between having a list of questions and doing it conversationally, or having a list of questions and going, check, okay, right? Then they're just like, can you just move on? Like, what is the price? How many people go into discovery and you get rushed to move on and get rushed to give them a price? How many people in discovery have that happen to them? screw this script. This isn't working. Everyone just wants to try to get me to give them. No one wants me to ask these questions. Right? All the time. I used to before your training. Me today. Okay. So there's something that happens when you're in discovery that triggers your customer to get them to want to get you to move on with it. Okay. What happens in discovery that triggers your customer to get them to tell you, can you just get on with it? What happens? What are you not doing? So if I were to ask someone a question of what caused you to want to look at getting some information to protect your family, or whoever I ask it, and they say, well, I'm just getting older and thought it would be a good time to look at it. And you respond with, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Do you have anything in place right now? No, I don't. Oh, okay. Well, do you have anything else, like any savings? Yes, I do. Oh, okay. Next question. So, right, does any of that sound familiar? You're asking a question, you get an answer, you say, okay, gotcha. You move on to the next question, you get an answer. Okay, gotcha. Move on to the next question, you get an answer. And it's this pattern of total interrogation. Who records their calls? And on the other side of that, who listens to their calls? That is an important piece. If you get rushed in discovery to get on with it, the number one thing you need to listen for is, how are you responding to their answers? Are you responding to their answers with gotcha? Next question. Or, oh, okay. Next question. If that is you, that is a trigger to your customer that you are just reading off a script. Okay. So if someone says, well, I'm just getting older and I thought I'd look into it now, how could you respond to that? Better to get somebody to go down another layer, a little bit deeper, and make it more conversational before you go to your next question about the fact that they're getting older. What about you getting older says, now is the time? I was watching a police show and they interviewed the suspect. They missed so many follow-up questions I couldn't watch anymore. Tim, that's because you're just trained so well. Can you elaborate? Good. I guess what were your primary thoughts and concerns? Good. What about getting older? Has you thinking that now's the time to look into it? Good. You've been following me. Good. Exactly. What about, so whatever they say, I want to use their words and repeat it back to them in the form of a question. So even if they said, we just had a death in the family and it got me thinking, I'm going to formulate what they said to try to go even deeper. It's still not good enough. I'm so sorry to hear that. What about losing such and such person and what you went through had you thinking that you needed to look into something now? What is it exactly about getting older that has you thinking that maybe now's the right time and age to start looking into it? Elaborate. I would not ask, has something happened recently that has you concerned? Why would I not say, has something happened? What type of question is that? What is the response? Here's what I'm talking about, script building. Exactly. That is a yes or no answer. So you're stuck now. Now you have to ask another question. You're not going to get an answer that will allow you to have them tell you more. Did something happen recently? No. Oh, tell me more about that. Really? Like, that doesn't match. Right? So you don't want to ask yes or no questions because you won't get any information that will allow you to go deeper. Right? So, oh, so you're 65. Okay, well, I mean, what about being 65? Has you thinking that now's the right time to look into it? You're going to get so much expansion. And then depending on the information they give you from that, you might even go deeper. And now you're having a conversation. You're not having a yes, no, question, interrogation. That's the word I'm looking for. You're having a conversation and you're letting them talk. The more you can get your customer to talk and you're just asking little tell me more, how do you means, mirroring back what they said, the more you can do that, the less they're going to push you to get on with it, because you're making the conversation about them and you're making it about them because they're the ones that are talking, right? I always think about this. Anytime I inquire about something and the salesperson just tries to pitch me on how great it is, and they never give me the opportunity to tell them why I even inquired about it in the first place or what problems I'm looking to solve, them telling me how great it is isn't going to get me to buy it. But them getting me to tell them why I need it and the problems that I'm having are going to make me want to solve that problem. So you have to get your customer to talk, right? That's the point of discovery. So let's go into some of these questions that we have here. So we asked why they inquired. Why do you think I ask how long someone's been looking? How long have you been looking? Ooh, that's a good one. Finding urgency. What else? What type of red flags could it signal though? Yes and no. It's very interesting that a lot of people are saying to see how serious they are. If someone's been looking for 6 months and they haven't found anything yet, how many people think that person is a tire kicker? Be honest. I've been looking for 6 months to a year and they haven't found anything yet. How many people are rolling their eyes and saying this is a waste of time? Right. Or they're just tire kickers, right? So those people are my favorite. They are my absolute favorite. Why don't people make decisions? What is a tire kicker? Is this your first sales job? A tire kicker is someone who's just wasting everyone's time, kicking tires. Yes, they have fear. It's not price, right? They have fear of making the wrong decision. And they get stuck in this inability to make a decision because everybody is just wanting to sell them a policy instead of helping them feel good about changing their situation. And that's where you go from being an order taker to a salesperson to a true sales professional, is getting someone to want to change. But that is also, there's 2 things that happen in discovery. Okay, the first one I'm going to give you, which is us understanding someone's pain and being able to understand and predict how this conversation is going to end, right? How we're going to ask questions and we're going to figure out what stopped them and who they want to protect and all of that. What is the other point of discovery? Why else are we doing discovery? Getting them to know that we understand, finding pain points, collecting ammo, building trust. Keep going. I don't see it yet. We need to know how to help them, know all the cards are in their hand, finding their why. There is a totally different reason why we're doing discovery. Who's seen the video? No one said it yet. Who's seen the video that I posted on how to double your conversion rate overnight? How can we double our conversion rate overnight? What else is the point of discovery? I'm waiting for it. Avoid objections. Tell you how to sell them. Oh, someone said it. John Miller, what do you mean by cut the dead weight? Hold on. John Miller. I'm going to look you up, John. All right. John, unmute. What did you mean by cut the dead weight?
Oh, hi. I just meant that in discovery, just as you're trying to figure out what you can do for somebody, at the same time, you can decide if they're just, maybe this is the wrong term, a deadbeat, and you're not going to get anything out of them. And if that's the case, the quicker you can cut it and put your attention on somebody that you actually have a chance to close, the better your numbers are going to be.
Yes. Congratulations. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
So 50% of discovery is trying to figure out how you're going to help someone and getting them to see that they have a problem so that they want to solve. But the other 50% of discovery is disqualifying people, right? We do all this work to get somebody to stay on the phone with us. But once we do, we get to be the ones who decide if they stay on the phone with us, right? And we don't want to stay on the phone with someone for the sake of staying on the phone with someone, right? So this sometimes takes just experience over time to learn, but there are some clues that you can kind of get in discovery. I'll give you one, and then you guys pop in the chat and give me some more clues. So here's a clue of someone that you should cut ties with. Well, I don't really care what happens to my body. They can just throw me in the river. That's a clue that you might not have someone that wants to solve a problem, right? It's not our job to talk somebody into seeing the value in final expense or whatever insurance you want to sell them. That is not our job. I'm going to say that again. It is not our job to convince somebody that they need final expense. Our job is to mine for the people that already see value and then to get them to change their situation. That's our job. So what else? Burn them in a barrel in the backyard. I'll be dead and not there anyway. Exactly. My kids will just take care of it. Avoid being friend zoned. That's a good one. What do you mean by avoid being friend zoned? Right? Not trying to get too friendly with people, because people tend to do business with people that they respect and that they see as a higher authority figure. When you get to the friend zone, now you're like at the same level as someone. Oh, and we're friends, right? They're definitely going to call me back on Friday because we're like this now, right? But the minute you hang up the phone, they've literally forgotten who you are. So 50% of discovery is mastering the art of getting in those deeper level questions and making sure that you can understand like where this is going to go. And the other 50% is letting people go if they just seem like they don't care, right? If they don't care, if there is no why, if there is no motivation, get them off your phone. Don't waste time with people that don't care what happens to them, because you will definitely end up with objections at the end. That's right. Ashley says, cut the bait. Okay. So at the end of discovery, we should know what caused them to inquire, if they already have insurance, what they have, what they wanted to take care of, maybe why they think what they have is not enough, or, you know, what caused them to get that amount, how long they've been looking, you know, what they've found, what stopped them from wanting to move forward with something, who they want to protect, what their final wishes are. All of this should happen, by the way, in like 5 minutes, 5 to 7. We're not having like a 30-minute conversation in discovery. If you do discovery right, you should be in and out of discovery in 5 to 7 minutes. It shouldn't take a long time. just because we're talking about it for a long time, it feels like, dang, this is going to take a long time. It really shouldn't. If you do it the right way and you understand the information you need to get, which essentially is where somebody's been, where they're at, and where they want to be. If you have all three of those, you can move on to the next section. Now, of those three things that I just said, what do you think is the number one thing that people skip? So where they've been, where they're at, where they want to be, of those three things, what do people skip the most? We have Kevin and Alyssa, you are A+ students. Okay. Why is where they've been like probably an important one you don't want to skip? Which is, how long have you been looking? What have you found? You know, what caused you to not want to get something before? You know, who else have you talked to? People's story matter, context, right? But if you don't ask, how long have you been looking and what have you found? You're going to get to the end and they're going to say, well, I talked to Mutual of Omaha yesterday and they told me this, right? Well, I talked to my cousin's brother's uncle last week and his sister is a life insurance agent and she said that she can get me this, right? So well, I'm just going to go down to the local funeral home. I had a meeting with them last week and they said they were going to set me up on a prepaid program. How many people have ever gotten something like that at the end? I'm just going to save it on my own, right? Any of those things is a direct result of you not asking where somebody's been. Those are all objections you can prevent. Because if you know where someone's been, you can speak to that stuff throughout your conversation. You can ask them questions about, you know, when you get into education here, which I personally think the sale takes place in education. I'm a huge proponent of that because you are providing something of value for free without asking for anything in return. And when you educate someone, you have a smart consumer who can make decisions without talking to someone, right? Because they can make decisions on their own now. But if you don't know where someone's been, if you are think about this, if you're getting those objections at the end, I talked to so-and-so last week, this company said this, I talked to the funeral home, you know, this and that. If you're getting all that stuff at the end, you are skipping a huge part of discovery. You have got to get that up front. It's really easy to just say, oh, so what expenses do you want to take care of? That means you're starting at where they're at. That means you've skipped the history. And the history tells you the clues for what you're being compared to. And if you don't speak to what you're being compared to, you're going to get that at the end. And now you're going to get away from emotion-based thinking and you're going to go back into what? What's the opposite of emotion-based thinking? Logic.
Logical.
Exactly. We do not want to close in logic-based thinking. That's not where the sale takes place. So if you get those kind of objections at the end, who created that objection in the first place? You did. You can't overcome an objection you created or failed to uncover in discovery, because now you got to backpedal. And when you backpedal, it's really hard to get back into the emotion of it. You guys seeing how all these pieces are starting to make sense? Okay. So when we're in education, how many people skip education? How many people skip it? Used to. And nobody skips it? It's a lot of people in here that I did before. Okay, so let me ask you a new question to make sure that y'all are here. Who does education? There we go. Okay. So the trick to mastering education is not just telling somebody the difference between term and whole life. That is not the trick. That's part of it. That's your baby steps. That's kindergarten. Okay. How do we make sure that we are on the same page with our customers before we leave education? Because how many times have you gone through education, you go to the quote, and your customer says, now, is that term or whole life? Why does that happen? Why does that happen? What did you not do in education that you have to do? Definitely go slower. What do you feel is best for you and why? Making sure you gain agreement before proceeding, get them to explain it back to you. Yes. Okay. So I can relate to what these seniors are going through right now so much right now with all the new stuff I'm learning. If someone's going to explain something to me and I'm hearing it for the first time and they don't give me the space to say it back, it's going through one ear and right out the other. If I'm not writing it down or if I'm not actually saying it back to them, I didn't really process it the way that I need to for it to make sense. Right? So I'll stop someone if they're trying to teach me something or if they're explaining something to me. Can I just repeat it back to you to make sure that I got what you just said? I know I have to do that to process it. So do our seniors. So when you explain term, we're all pretending right now that we're just selling final expense. You guys probably sell a whole bunch of stuff. When you explain term, and then you say at the end, so do you see how term insurance may not be the best option for your final expenses? And they say, oh yeah. You then have to say, perfect. Can you go ahead and just tell me why you agree with me? Okay. And if they can't explain it back to you, you have to find another way to explain it until they can. Because they really just didn't get it or they tuned you out. They might proactively say, oh, you mean this happens and this happens? Well, what happens? You know, you'll have someone really engaged and they'll say, well, what happens when it's over? What happens to all my money? Right? You know that they're there. You don't then have to ask the, can you explain to me? But when you have someone who's silent and they're just listening and they're not really engaging with you and they're saying yes and no, those are the people you have to engage. Okay, you have to say, perfect, I'm so glad you agree with me. Just to make sure you and I are on the same page, you know, why do you agree with me? Why do you think that would not be the best option? Let them participate in the conversation. They're so used to people dominating them, telling them, not giving them the space to contribute. They're not even used to it. So sometimes it feels awkward for them. But if you start that precedence early on in discovery, you let them talk. It's not weird anymore because you've already set the standards in discovery. You're talking. So now we're in education. That's awesome. Why do you agree with me? Okay. You move on to whole life. You explain what that is. Do you see how that is why more people choose that type of policy? Right? Oh yeah, I do. And I know it sounds repetitive, but I just want to make sure. Why do you like that policy better? Find a different way to say it. Maybe sound silly. Make fun of yourself. You have got to get them to repeat it back to you. Okay. And they might even drop some clues that you didn't even know were there. Plus, you're also balancing out how much you're talking versus how much they're talking, which is really important. You have to get them to keep talking. Okay. Any questions about education? Put them in the chat if you do. This is where I play the Jeopardy timer song. No? We're good? Perfect. So if you're not with Lincoln or Senior Life, or you're not selling maybe a other sort of funeral concierge product, you're now at the point where you're going to be summarizing everything and getting them to what? So if I'm not going to be doing a funeral concierge program here, how would I move from education to health questions, what do I have to do in between that still? Recap, what else? There's something really important that we have to do. We just finished education. So after discovery, after education, there's something that we have to get them to do to kind of solidify consequences in discovery. We didn't really fully talk in discovery all the questions, but consequences in discovery. What do we think? Has anybody ever heard me say that telesales is like an audiobook? And what do audiobooks do when you listen to them? Tell a story, right? Are you not talk back? Are you picturing anything in your mind when you're listening to a book? Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So we've just talked about where they've been, where they're at, where they want to be, the consequences of not doing something. We didn't say that earlier, but that's in discovery. We've now educated them. They understand now what type of solution they want. Most people won't take the time to do that. Okay, so now we're going to get them to visualize something. What are we going to get them to visualize? I've never listened to an audiobook. Okay, fine. But you picture something when you read. What are we going to get them to visualize? Yes. Good. Picturing their family at the funeral home, not them, whoever their beneficiary is. Family struggling, getting them to try to figure it out. Perfect. So we want to have a story, right? We want to have a story here that kind of gets us to help them put it all together, right? So perfect. Now we know what type of policy you're looking for. I understand what stopped you in the past from doing it, what you're trying to accomplish, what the consequences would be for your kids if you didn't, how it would make them feel if you did. Because really, right, now we can modify our hospital story. Because really, none of this matters until it's 30 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Right? And you're sitting in the hospital with your kids and things aren't looking good. And that nurse walks in at 2 a.m. and taps your son on the shoulder and says, "I'm so sorry, but your dad has just passed." Okay, that nurse is going to offer her condolences, but the very next thing she's going to say is, "Your son's going to have to make arrangements for your body. They have to get the room ready for the next patient." I mean, what do you think your son is going to do in that moment? Like, he just found out you're gone. He can't visit you anymore. He can't touch you anymore. He can't say, "I love you" anymore. He can't tell you about his day, about your grandkids. I mean, it's gone. And even if you're expecting it, that wave of, oh my gosh, just floods you. And now they have to also worry about where they're going to get the money. What are they going to do in that moment? Right? You have to get them to picture it. That is your whole audiobook portion of this. You have to make it real for them. This isn't transactional. This is real life. You are going to die and your kids are going to be responsible for this, or whoever it is. This is one less thing they're going to have to worry about, because all they're going to have to do is pull out that policy that you gave them. They're going to start that claims process and they're going to know that everything for your funeral has been taken care of. Right? You should then hear a sigh of relief. Thank you so much. You have now solved their problem. That is where the sale takes place. Okay, that's where the sale takes place. You haven't even asked a single health question yet, and they're sold because you have solved their problem and you have taken the time to know them, to understand them, to educate them, and then get them to picture what's going to happen when that time comes. So now all we're going to do is ask you some health questions, figure out what you qualify for. I have access to all the best carriers, so we will find something that's affordable for you. And if it makes sense, we can move forward. How does that sound? Right? We're going to do some like sort of pre-closing. But guys, they should already be sold at this point. Okay, so the health questions and the quoting and talking about the company and how long they've been in business for and blah, blah, blah. That is just an aftermath of them making the decision to change. Okay, anybody have any questions about what I just said? Where does the sale take place? Put it in the chat. Where does the sale take place? At the sigh of relief. Exactly. How much different do you think your script will be? Not very different. I just need to get used to it now in this different world. It's not going to be incredibly different. Good. I'm a huge believer of waiting for health questions until the end. Because what that does for me is it puts the expectation that I'm going to get a sale or focused on pricing or focused on what they qualify for. It gets me out of the transactional thought process and it keeps me 100% focused on the human being that is on the other end of the phone. So I can be 100% focused on them and taking them through the journey of wanting to change their situation. Asking them health questions, it's not going to matter if they don't want to change. It's just not going to matter. Having the best price with the best carrier is not going to matter if they have no sense of urgency or they have no desire to want to change. Okay? So you really should be, someone just asked, how long does it take to get health questions? You should be there in 10 to 15 minutes, right? It sounds complicated, but it really doesn't take that long to get there. 10 to 15 minutes is a long time to be on the phone with someone talking about all their emotions and stuff, right? But don't forget, we have the good education section that breaks it up. That also gets them away from their emotions for a second, which they like. It's like a nice break, right? And we're teaching them something. And then we get back into the emotions again. So then we ask health questions, you go into your toolkits, you figure out what you can get. And at that point, it's not about if, it should just be about how much, right? How much can we afford? And what is going to be the best application for our customer to be able to complete, right? Because I know some people have voice, some people have text, some people have email, and we'd have to figure out all those mechanics. So we just got to pick the best carrier for them. So that way we can get them into a policy. I'll be 100% upfront with someone. If they don't have an email and that carrier is maybe $10 cheaper, I'll tell them, look, I can get you this one for maybe $10 cheaper a month, but if you don't have an email, no one will be able to help you get it. Right? Like, I'll just tell them. People want you to be real with them. So now let's talk about objections at the end. We have 15 minutes. I want to think about it. I want to talk to someone. Call me next week. Can I get your name? What's your number? Right? Those are all clues of the objections. I typically handle objections the same way. So that way it's, again, sharpening your sword. I don't want you guys to just be like so overwhelmed with objections at the end that you have to be like deer in headlights. Oh my God, what objection do I use? The best thing to do is master one. And once you've mastered it, be able to branch off and start integrating other different types of objection strategies with those. So it doesn't matter what the objection is. I want to think about it. I want to talk to someone. I want to look it over, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. It's all Charlie Brown to me. So what's the number one thing we do when we get an objection? Someone take a guess. Ashley says when you say think about it, most people say that because, oh, too many people are typing. Most people say they don't feel like they need it or they can't afford it. Which one is it for you? Not affordable, or you don't think you need it? Good. So that's kind of like the I'm not interested objection in the very beginning, kind of giving them a couple of paths to go down. You can definitely do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if I were to give you one way, just one way, so that way you don't have it, I want to think about it, I want to talk to someone, you know, what's your name? Can you email me information? You just have one way that you use every single time, and you just master that. That's not a problem. I understand why. Repeat back objection. That's not a problem. I understand why you would want to think about it. It's a big decision. That's not a problem. I understand wanting to talk to your kids. It's a big decision. That's not a problem. I understand wanting to pray about it. It's a big decision, right? So we say, not a problem. I understand that. Repeat back what they said and acknowledge that it's a big decision, right? Second thing, can I just ask you a question? Is that okay? What question do I want to ask? What's the question I want to ask? Good. Good. Is this something you think you even want to have? Okay. So here's the fork in the road. If you did a good job, they're going to say yes. They might say yes, but you can't let them say but. They're going to say yes. If you didn't do a good job, they might even say no. I don't think I want it. Wouldn't you rather know that rather than try to fight for something someone doesn't want? That's a call you have to record and listen to. How did you get there? How did you get all the way to quotes and them say they don't want it? Okay. So yeah, okay. They want to have it. Good. Tell me, what is it about? What do you like about it? How do you think this is going to benefit you? Okay. And then you just start getting them to talk about how the insurance is going to benefit them. And I'm doing that before I ask them about price and lowering the price, because it always goes down to price, right? Always goes down to price. But I'm not going to focus on price first, because what type of thinking is that? That is logic-based thinking. So first, I want to get them back to emotion. I want them to tell me why they want it first before I offer to lower the price. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you do want to have this because repeat back what they said. But really kind of the only thing stopping you right now is you just want to take some time to think about it. Did that kind of make sense, or did I get that right? Okay, well, can I maybe make a recommendation? Sure. Okay, now I'm going to go into price. So it seems to me that everything we've talked about today, you understand it, you see how it can protect your family. It's something you've always wanted to have. Would it maybe make sense to possibly lower, just temporarily, lower the amount of coverage so that your family has something? That way your payment is a little lower to start. And then if you always, you can always increase it if you want more in the future. Do you think possibly reducing your payment would help you feel a little bit more comfortable to get started rather than doing nothing at all and being in the same position when we got on the phone today? So really the only formula, and this is scary for a lot of people, but the formula is agreeing with them, asking them if they want it, asking permission, do you even want it, getting them to tell you why they want it, and then lowering the price. Because usually that's the answer. But I don't go directly to price because then I'm just in logic-based thinking. So I need to get out of that. Okay, does anyone have any questions on that? How we got there? No questions? I've recently joined Facebook again, by the way, if nobody knows. I've been off Facebook for 10 years, and I got back on Facebook and I joined these life insurance groups. And in these life insurance groups, somebody asked a question about how do we identify someone's budget? I'm trying to ask them what their budget is. You know, am I saying, is it between 25 to 50, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, and like trying to nail down their budget? How do we give them 3 options based on their budget? Why would that be a mistake? Why do I never ask somebody their budget unless they bring it up? Anyone have any ideas? Why would I never want to ask someone their budget? True, they have no idea what the value is. They don't even know. They don't even know, right? So when we get to the end, one of the things that is going to make or break here is, are you going to do such a good job from hello to health questions and then turn back into a script robot again and say, here's 3 options, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, which is not what you should do? Or should you say, based on everything you've shared with me today and everything I know you want to take care of and that's important to you, here's the amount of coverage I'm going to recommend for you to take care of those needs. And after I give that to you, we can adjust it higher or lower based upon what you feel is affordable. Right? Because if I just go shopping for someone and someone just says, well, here's all the options, go pick one, how in the world am I supposed to know which one to pick if I don't understand what the thing is supposed to do for me? Then it just becomes confusing and I'm not going to be able to make a decision. So we need an expert to be able to tell us why we need that amount of coverage to help justify it, so they can justify getting that amount of coverage. Right? Based on everything that you've mentioned to me today, here's the amount of coverage that I'm going to be recommending to take care of that. Depending on their age, you're going to want to make sure you account for a little bit of inflation. If that becomes unaffordable for whatever reason, do we agree that some amount of coverage is better than nothing at all? Even if we can't afford the 20,000 that we think we might want, just throwing some stuff out there, and we have to go down, are you okay with at least giving your kids a check for $10,000, even if we can't do the 20, right? These little mini, what do we call them? Mini sales closes along the way to get them to be okay with going down lower before you give them pricing. But we always want to make a recommendation for coverage based on their needs, not based on their budget. Because if their budget is $20, if they tell you it's $20, you're going to be like, well, you can have $2,000 for that. And they want a traditional burial in a mausoleum at the top of a hill next to the president. I mean, like, just unrealistic expectations. Don't ask about budget. You are then selling in logic-based thinking. If you're asking those types of questions, that's how you sell. And if you're selling in logic-based thinking, you're putting your customer in logic-based thinking, and you're going to get a lot of objections. I want to think about it, because you're not getting your customer to go deeper to change their situation. Tie down. Thank you, Antonio. All right, we have 8 minutes left for questions. So if you want to unmute and ask a question, you can raise your virtual hand on there and we can unmute you and ask a question, or you can type it in the chat. Anybody feel that this training was somewhat helpful today? This is literally just kind of scratching the surface, right? Anybody who ends up joining the team, we are going to have tons of training like this, lots of call reviews, really digging deep into real conversations, making sure that you really understand how to take someone from hello to congratulations. So it's not a numbers game, it is a skills game. And that's really going to give you the confidence to get on the phones and dial every single day, right? Welcome the objections. Yes, this is recorded. We're putting it on YouTube, but YouTube land doesn't get to ask questions. So you get to ask questions right now. So might as well take advantage of it. Am I selling all products? I will be. Not today, but I will be. I joined with Lasting Mark because I do want to have everything. We're going to have Empower Life Group, Empower Health Group, Empower Retirement Group. We're going to have it all. What's the best voicemail to get them to call you back? The best voicemail to get them to call you back is no voicemail. We don't leave voicemails. Let's see. Kevin and Alyssa, unmute.
Hey Dana, I'll be honest, I'm kind of nervous about my question. But so I love your training. It's helped us a ton. The only thing I haven't implemented is the budget thing because oh, sorry.
You're
Go
just
ahead.
asking Mark, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And
so
we're so happy to have you, by the way. So excited.
oh, I can't wait. We need to do trainings for each other's teams. 'Cause
Absolutely.
you are badass.
Oh my God, that means so much. I appreciate that. You have no idea. I'm like fangirling inside right now. So I'm really nervous about my question because I personally, with the budget thing, okay, this is what we do. We kind of ask for their budget, but a little bit different. So it's sort of like, for example, me, I will go, hey, so it's probably going to be something like this. Let's say, for example, it's for what you're looking for and what we need, it's probably going to range between, let's say, 100 and 120 a month. But I want to ask you, because you're on a fixed income, is that something that's doable for you, or is that kind of like a crazy number? And then
Pause.
go ahead.
Pause.
Go
You
ahead.
continue. I want to know why you feel like you have to ask the question. So I want to know the logic behind the question.
So for me, because I feel like if I just pitch them what I feel like they need, or based off of the conversation we had, then I guess I'm a little afraid of the back and forth that's going to happen between, like, if they don't find it affordable, and then have it kind of like what you said, having to come back down and hey, some coverage is better than no coverage, so let's do this, or how to approach that. I think I'm a little bit nervous about the back and forth, and I like the more kind of smooth, again, in my opinion, I like the more smooth, like, process of let's work through this together. So based on this, it's probably going to be this much. Does that work for you? Is that something like a range that you can handle? Just I want to make sure this is going to be affordable for you over everything else. And based on how they respond to that, like, even if they say yes but they're hesitant to it, like, I will sometimes just kind of bring them down a little bit. But I mean, that's kind of how, that's my perspective. I kind of want to know your opinion on that.
So it's not significantly different than presenting them your recommendation and giving them the quote. All you're doing is trying to figure out if the number you're about to give them is going to be comfortable before you give them the number. You're like 1 minute ahead of yourself.
Okay.
Right? There's really not a huge difference, but what you're doing there is, I really think it does lower your status just a little bit, because you already know what it's going to be, right? And so let's pretend for a second, you know that you want to quote someone 20,000, and you know that it's going to be between 100 and 120, just what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they want. They had their heart set on 20,000. And you said, well, it's probably going to be somewhere between 100 and 120. Do you think you're going to be comfortable with that? And they say, no, I can't afford anything past 50. You're in the same position as you were than if you just gave them the recommendation. Because you're still doing that.
Gotcha. Can I respond to that? Is that okay? So I think the reason for me I'm comfortable doing it that way is because I still haven't given them a direct answer, or like so the way that I feel about quoting, like, once we give them the options, I feel like it's over. And at least that's how how I feel about it. You can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, because you can still say, I'm going to give you my recommendation, but that isn't it. Once they give you the recommendation, we can adjust it, because there's other companies we can look at. There's other coverage amounts we can look at. We can adjust it higher and lower. But based on everything you've told me today, Kevin, my recommendation is going to be based upon the coverage that you need to protect your wife with the best company at the best price. And if that doesn't end up matching, we can still adjust it. Does that sound fair?
Okay.
So I'm leaving it open, so that way it doesn't have to be the end once you give them the price. I'm saying, here's my recommendation. If for whatever reason it feels uncomfortable, we can look at other options. Because your recommendation now isn't going to match what they need when they tell you the price range you gave them isn't affordable. Now you're giving a recommendation based on their price range, not on what they really need.
No, it makes sense. I'm gonna try that this week. I'm nervous. But everything else you've taught us works, so I appreciate you.
Thanks for coming. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much, Dana. I appreciate it.
Philippe,
Hello, hello, hello.
hello. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, how do you
Oh, you're on mute.
ask for referrals?
So you could do it two ways. The question is, how do you ask for referrals? You can either at the very end, once they're approved, very, very simply say, congratulations. How much weight do you feel lifted off your shoulder? Don't you feel so great getting this taken care of? Hey, just before I let you go, do you know anybody else that would benefit from having this exceptional service that you got today? Right? So very simple question. Do you know anyone else who could benefit from this exceptional service? Now, I will be implementing a front-end retention team like I had before at my other company. And I'm going to have a team that's going to continuously reach out to all of my agency's customers to continue to ask for referrals and give those referrals back to the agents. But if you're doing it on that one call, that's how I would do it at the end. You can do follow-up,
Awesome.
but I'm a huge proponent of, what's the word when you give a job to someone else? Delegate. I'm a huge delegator.
Delegate.
So if we want to maximize our the more sales you get, the harder it is to keep up with all the people you sold before. So get a VA,
Right.
get a VA to follow up on your leads and ask for referrals that way. That's my recommendation.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Hey, Dana, love your training. I got it from Kevin because I'm with Kevin and Alyssa. I had a, can we go back to the, like earlier when there was like, I think a gap between, was it education and health questions?
Yeah.
And you did something there. Can you kind of just go back to that? I think you compared it to an audiobook, and that part I just need a little bit more clarity on how to integrate that with my clients, right? Maybe that's a story. Can you just go back to that?
Yeah. So after we do the discovery and the education, and they definitely say that they want whole life, then I may do like a little trial close and say, you know, give a little recap on everything that I learned about them, that they know what type of insurance that they want, and then kind of like summarize, do you think this is, you know, the type of insurance you think you want to have? And they'll say yes. And then I'm going to transition into, I'm so glad you feel that way. You're right. And then I'm going to do the story. So the hospital story in the script. So, you know, the bottom line is, right, none of this matters until you pass away anyways. I mean, let's pretend it's X years away from now. And then I'm going to do the story to get them to picture in their mind what their beneficiary is going to go through when they pass away. Ask them, what do they think their family member is going to do at that moment? And then I'm going to solve the problem, like, and they have to think about where they're going to get the money. Well, you know, instead, they're just going to pull out the policy that you did so many years ago and know that at least you've taken the steps to financially protect them from this emotional burden that they're going to be experiencing. Right. So I'm just going to make them feel that pain of passing away and what that's going to be like for their family.
Got it.
That
Is
answer.
it always the same story?
Yes.
Always the same one? Okay, good. All right. Yeah.
It's always the
makes sense.
same, right? Everything's always the same. So that way you don't have to change a million times. It's just your customer that's changing.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Is that all of our questions? Do we have anybody else? I don't see anybody. Oh, wait, hold on. One more. I already forgot your name because your name isn't on the screen. You can unmute. REQ 104442.
Yes. So questions regarding call cadence. Like I know you said earlier, you don't leave a voice message. So how many calls will be considered as too much calls, or be like we're to the point where they basically just block you?
Okay. Well, first of all, you have to check the rules and laws in the state. Florida, for example, 3 points of contact in a 24-hour period. So don't ever triple dial your Florida leads. And 3 points of contact in Florida includes SMS and it includes email. So make sure you know the TCPA compliance laws in your state. But in general, I'm going to double or triple dial them the first time they come in. And then I'm going to, the call cadence, probably call them another 2 or 3 times the rest of that first day. But you have to have like a really good dialer in place that helps you stay organized on who you're supposed to call and when you're supposed to call them. A huge portion of sales don't take place until between like the 15th and 25th attempt. And so you're going to call them, you're going to call them less frequently the older they get, but you should still try to have 1 touch a day at least after they're like a week or 2 weeks old. And you should still be optimizing your SMS to reach out to them until they say stop or whatever it is, to not block them. But your biggest point of contact is going to be in that first day, right? Try to get them on the phone right away. And then the next day would be maybe 3 or 4 times. And the next day would maybe be 3 times. And the next day, 3 times, and then 2 times, and then 1 time. And you're going to slowly taper it the older it gets, because you're going to have to put all of your focus on the new leads that came in the next day.
Okay. Thank you. Well, yeah, my name is Sai.
So you just got to change your name on there so we know.
I forgot to do it.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you guys so much for attending the script training today. I really appreciate it. And I think a couple people were asking for links to the script. You did not get it in your email. So let me put the link here for you before we end it. So the first one is the script itself. The second one is going to be the objections in the first 30 seconds. And the third one is going to be the end of call objections. All right, I'll leave it up there for a minute before I end the Zoom, because once the Zoom ends, the links disappear. And so if there's any last minute questions in the chat, you can put them in there. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for spending it with me. I appreciate it. And I'll end it here in just a minute. Make sure you guys got the links. Did anybody want the link again to the Meet the Partners on Thursday? Anybody want me to put that in the chat? Meet the Partners on Thursday for Lasting Mark? Yes? Okay. Let me put that in there. I gotta find it. There we go. Okay, Meet the Partners. You can find me on Instagram at Final Expense Telesales. You can email me at dana@empowerlifegroup.com. You can book an interview with me, but I'm like 4 weeks out now. But you can always check back for openings. That's why I did the Meet the Partners, because I'll be there on Thursday and I'll help you answer a lot of your questions to the company if you think that that is a good fit for you. And if you want to work with me, I've already contracted 12 out of the first 25. So everybody knows. And for those that are still hanging out, the first 25 are people that are good to be on autopilot and test and work the leads in the system alongside with me. So the first 30, 45 days of my experience here is going to be as an agent, testing the dialer, that's the CRM, testing and working the script, testing all the lead sources, coming up with new systems and processes so that I can make recommendations to new agents as they come in. You are not going to have the training and the coaching and the call reviews and the mentoring that you expect from me in the first 30, 45 days. So the first 25 people, they're getting higher contracts to start because they are self-efficient. I don't know what the word is. And then I'll be bringing people on again, probably the end of February, middle of March. When I'm pulled out of that role, and I can take people on to really nurture them through the learning process. Thank you, self-sufficient. It's time for a glass of wine. So I'm halfway booked for my first 25. All right, we're gonna end it here. Thank you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you, Dana. We appreciate it.